last session, yesterday's session. So on yesterday we have seen the different types of data to signal convergence. So good afternoon, friends. We'll take a recap of what we have seen on yesterday's lecture. So on yesterday we have seen the different types of encoding the data into different signals. So there are basically four types of data convergence to signal. So digital data to digital signal, analog data to digital signal, then analog data, digital data to analog signal, and analog data to analog signal. So these are the four types of encoding techniques. Out of these four, we have already discussed the first one, that is how do we transmit the digital data to a digital signal. Okay, so today as a part of this session, we'll not start with the analog to digital conversion. So what it means, converting the analog data to digital signal. We know that a digital signal is superior to an analog signal because it is more robust to noise and it can easily recover, as well as we can correct the analog signal, digital signal, and we can amplify it also. So for this reason, the tendency today is to change an analog signal to the digital data. So as a part of this analog to digital conversion, we are going to discuss two techniques of converting analog data to digital signal. One is pulse code modulation, PCM, and other is the delta modulation. So let us start with the first one. So pulse code modulation, it consists of three steps to digitize an analog signal. The first step is the sampling, second step is quantization, and third step is binary encoding, that is transmitting a stream of bits. So before we sample, we have to filter the signal, which actually gives the limit of the maximum frequency of the signal as it affects, or we can say that as it affects the sampling rate. So filtering, it ensures that we do not distort the signal while transmitting it through the transmission media. That is, we are removing the high frequency component that may have effect on the signal's shape. Okay. So in this figure, you can see that the analog signal is passed through the PCM encoder, and PCM has three steps that we have just mentioned. And as a part of, as an output of this PCM encoding is the digital signal. Okay, so we are actually transforming a digital analog data to a digital signal. So let us see this in more detail, how this sampling will take place and all. Okay, so in this figure, you can observe that an analog signal, it is sampled at every TS second. Okay, so what is TS? So TS is referred to as the sampling interval. Okay, and the sampling rate in that case, or we can also call it as a sampling frequency, then it will be calculated as 1 upon sampling interval, that is 1 divided by TS. So there are three sampling methods that PCM supports. One is the ideal sampling method, in which an impulse at each sampling is instant. The second sampling method is the natural sampling method, in which a pulse of signal is of short width and it varies with the amplitude. Then the third type of sampling method is flat top, in which the signal is sampled and it will be held like a natural, but the signal is sampled using single amplitude value. That is very important. So this process is referred to as the pulse amplitude modulation, which you might have seen in the previous figure. Okay, PAM signal. And the outcome is the signal with the analog values. So then, according to the Nyquist theorem, the sampling rate, it must be at least twice times the highest frequency contained in the signal. Okay, so what Nyquist theorem suggests? Nyquist theorem, it suggests that the sampling rate or the sampling frequency, it should always be twice or the double of the highest frequency contained in that signal. Okay, so we know that we are using two types of media to transmit the signal. One is low pass channel, that is baseband channel, and other is the band pass channel. Now we know that the minimum frequency in low pass channel, it always starts with 0 and highest frequency is given to us. But that is not the case in case of band pass channel. Here you can see that the minimum frequency in band pass signal or band pass channel is not 0. So it is any other positive value. Okay. So if maximum frequency is given to me, then I can find out the low pass signal's bandwidth. But I cannot find out the band pass signal's bandwidth. Why? Because I need the minimum frequency value also in order to find out the band pass signal's bandwidth. So how do we calculate the bandwidth? So the bandwidth of low pass signal as well as the band pass signal is calculated as the difference between maximum frequency and the minimum frequency. Okay, right. So if only the maximum frequency is given to me, in that case I can calculate the bandwidth of low pass signal. But using available maximum frequency, I cannot calculate the bandwidth of band pass signal. Why? Because the lower frequency or the minimum frequency of a band pass signal is always non-zero, and that is the reason we cannot find it. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So for an intuitive examples of the Nyquist theorem, let us sample a simple sine wave at three sampling rates. The first frequency or the first sampling rate is basically twice times the Nyquist rate. The second sampling frequency is basically the Nyquist rate itself, and the third sampling rate is actually 1/2 of the Nyquist rate. So this figure, it shows the sampling and the subsequent recovery of the signal. Now here you can easily see that the sampling at the Nyquist rate can create a good approximation. Okay, so it is basically a first figure which you can see. Okay, sampling the frequency at the Nyquist rate. Okay, so the first figure or part A figure, it gives us or it creates a good approximation of the original sine wave. But the oversampling in part B, it can also create the same approximation, but it is redundant and unnecessary, right? Though it also produces at approximately the same original shape of the original sine wave, but it is actually redundant. It is of no use. It is not necessary at all. In the third case, in part C, the sampling below the Nyquist rate, it does not produce a signal that looks like the original sine wave, right? So the original sine wave, it is look like this, and using a Nyquist rate, which says that the Nyquist rate is what? The Nyquist sampling rate is always twice the bandwidth, okay, or the highest frequency, what you can say. Okay, so oversampling is also gives us the approximately a good signal, good sine wave, but you know, it is of no use. And so on in the last case, that is undersampling, where the sampling is done at the half of the Nyquist rate. So in which you can see that this signal is distorted. Okay, so now consider to understand this, how this Nyquist rate, it affects the shape, the resultant shape of the signal, analog signal, what you can say, that we try to understand with this example. So consider the revolution of hand of a clock. The second hand of a clock has a period of 60 seconds. So according to the Nyquist theorem, we need to sample the hand at every 30 seconds. So how do we calculate it? 30. So it is twice of the highest frequency. So 2 divided by 2 into 1 divided by TS, right? So TS is given to us, that is 60 seconds. So 2 into 1 divided by 60, which gives me the value 30 seconds. So that means according to the at the Nyquist sampling rate, I have to sample the hand of a clock at every 30 seconds. Okay, according to the Nyquist sampling rate, that is 2 into frequency. Okay, 2 into the difference of the lowest and the highest frequency, right? So now in the first figure you can see that the part A figure, the sample points, they are in order, that is they are at the 12, then 6, then 12, then 6, and then again 12 and 6. So because of this, what is happening, the receiver of the samples, they cannot tell if whether the clock is moving forward or clock is moving backward, right? So the Nyquist rate, the Nyquist sampling rate does not gives any information to the receiver whether the clock is moving forward or backward. But in part B, if we sample the frequency double the Nyquist rate, then what would be the interval that we get? So the interval that we'll get will be, the sampling interval will be 15 seconds. So now what it means, the sample points in this case would be 12, 3, 6 and 9. And you can see that you may have a feel of that clock is moving forward, right? Like this, then 3, then 6, then 9 and 12. So you can visualize it as the clock is moving forward direction. Whereas in this case, we cannot guess whether clock is moving forward or backward. Sometimes you may feel that the clock is moving forward, and sometimes you may feel that the clock is moving backward. Okay. Now in the third case, in part C, we sample below the Nyquist rate. That is, the TS, value of TS will be T into 3 divided by 4. So value of T is given to us, that is 60 seconds. So 60 into 3 divided by 4. So it gives me the answer 45. That means the sample shows the clock is moving in a backward direction. So what is the sampling points that we get? So the sampling points that we will get will be 9, 12, then 45 seconds interval will give me the 9. Then after 45 seconds interval, we'll get 6, and then we'll get 3, and then we'll get 12. So in this case, you may visualize it as that the clock is moving backward. Okay, so we are starting here, and you may have a feel that the clock is moving in the backward direction. So although the clock is moving forward actually in the third case, but we get a feel that the clock is moving backward, and the receiver thinks that the clock is moving backward. So another example we can take to try to understand this concept as an example in which you may feel that the wheels of the car, they are rotating in the backward direction. Okay, or you can say that the car which is moving forward, but you may feel that the rotation of the wheels of the car, they are moving in the backward direction. Maybe you might have seen this in a movie. So this can be explained by undersampling. So a movie is a film, or it is shoot at 24 frames per second. And if a wheel is rotating more than 12 times per second, then the undersampling creates the impression of backward rotation. And that's why we feel that actually the car is moving in the forward direction. But if you look at the rotation of the wheels of the car, then you feel that the rotation of the wheels are moving in the backward direction. So let us take one example with respect to this. A complex low-pass signal has a bandwidth of 200 kilohertz. What is the minimum sampling rate for this signal? So as I just mentioned, when you are passing a signal through a complex low-pass channel, okay, then the minimum frequency is always 0, and the bandwidth is given to us, that is 200 kilohertz. That means the highest frequency is 200 kilohertz and the lowest frequency is 0. So that's the reason we get the bandwidth 200 kilohertz. Now, what is the minimum sampling rate for this signal? Can anybody calculate it? What would be the bandwidth rate? What would be the sampling rate? So Nyquist has given the answer to it. The minimum sampling rate for this low pass signal will be twice of its bandwidth. So let us go back and see what Nyquist has mentioned. So what is Nyquist said? According to the Nyquist theorem, the sampling rate must be at least twice times the highest frequency contained in that signal. So the highest frequency contained in this example So what is the highest frequency in this example? It is 200 kilohertz. In low pass signal, the lower frequency is 0 and the higher frequency is the 200 kilohertz. So the sampling rate would be 200 into 2, so which gives me 400 kilohertz, and if you convert it into hertz, you will get something 4 lakh bits per second will be the sampling rate. Okay, so let us go quickly to the next slide. So now quantization is one of the steps that we have seen as a part of the PCM encoder. So what is quantization? So in quantization, the sampling results in a series of pulses of varying amplitude values, which ranges between two limits, minimum voltage and the maximum voltage. And the amplitude values, they are infinite in between these two limits. Okay. So we need to map the infinite amplitude values onto a finite set of known values. And this is achieved by dividing the distance between minimum and maximum to L zones, or each of the height delta. So what are the quantization zones? Now assume that we have a voltage signal with amplitudes. Minimum amplitude is minus 20 volt and the maximum amplitude is plus 20 volt. Now we want to use the 8 quantization level. So L is equal to 8. So how many how do we calculate the width of the zone? What would be the width of the zone? I have just mentioned the formula. How do we calculate the quantization width? So it is achieved by dividing the distance between minimum and maximum into L zones, each of height delta. So the formula given to calculate the width or the height of your distance between minimum and maximum zones will be, that is basically the width. It is represented by delta, and delta is calculated as maximum voltage minus minimum voltage divided by total number of levels. So total number of levels, if it is ranges from, let's say that the value of L that we want to use is 8. The quantization levels that we want to use is 8. So maximum voltage is 20, minimum voltage is minus 20. So 20 minus 20 divided by 8. So minus will get plus. So 40 divided by 8 is equal to 5. So the width of the zone that we have calculated will be 5. And if there are, you can calculate it as there are 8 zones. If it is 8 zones for the given range of the amplitude, that is from minus 20 to plus 20, then how it would be ranged? So the first zone will be minus 20 to minus 15. Second zone will be minus 15 to minus 10. Third zone will be minus 10 to minus 5. Fourth zone will be minus 5 to 0. Fifth will be 0 to plus 5. Sixth will be 5 to 10. Seventh 10 to 15, and eighth will be 15 to 20. Okay. And the middle points of this zone will be nothing but the mid value of that zone. Okay, so the mid value of -20 to -15 will be -17.5 and so on for the other zone as well. So the midpoint of each zone is assigned a value from 0 to L-1, which is resulting in L values. So each sample falling in a zone is then approximated to the value of the midpoint, and that you can observe here in this figure. Okay, so every value, it is actually a midpoint of that zone. Okay, so here this one, this one, this one, this one, these are actually the midpoints. So quantization values is basically this middle point of that zone. So the middle point of this zone, first zone, where your first sample lies, is actually -1.50. So this is so on. This is for the second one, this is for the third, fourth, fifth, and so on. Okay, so the normalized error is basically the difference between this normalized pulse amplitude modulation values and the normalized quantized value. So normalized quantized value is actually the midpoint of that zone, remember. Okay, so error is calculated as the difference between this normalized value, so -1.22, sorry, 1.50 minus 1.22 will give you the normalized error, that is -0.38, and so on. If the normalized pulse amplitude modulation value and the normalized quantized value, if they are same, then the error will be 0, which is shown in this second case. And each quantization level has a quantization code. Okay, so the quantization level 1 for this first value has the code 2. Okay, then the second has the code 5, then the third one has the code 7. So 2 means what it means? The value, this value is actually lies in between this second code. Okay, this code. So this is referred to this level, 1 is referred to this yellow, 2 is referred to this blue. And you can see that the pulse amplitude modulation value, that is 1.22, it lies in this second code. Okay, so that's the reason its encoded words will be 010, 010, right? And how do it is calculated? So you can take the 3 bits, 4, 2, 1. So because it is 2, so the remaining 2 bits in 4 to 1 will be 0. And that's how we get this encoded word 010. Okay. Do you understand? Am I going well? Do you understand this? So how do we assign the codes to the zones? So each zone is then assigned a binary code that we have just mentioned. The number of bits required to encode the zone, or the number of bits per sample, is commonly referred, or it is obtained using the formula called NB is equal to log base 2L. So, or you can call it as N is equal to log base 2L. This formula we have already seen. Okay, so N is what? N is in this case the bit rate, the number of bit required to encode the zone, and log L, log base 2L, L represents what? L is the quantization level, the number of quantization level. Now, for example, let's say that we have the value of number of bit required to encode the zone given to us, that is 3. Okay, what would be the number of levels? Or you can call it as a number of zones. Use the simple formula. Anybody? N is equal to log base 2 to L. So we can just take this formula. N is equal to log base 2 L. So value of n is given to us, that is 3. So the number of bit required to encode the zone is 3. In that case, L is calculated as 2 to the power n, that is 2 to the power 3, which is nothing but 8. So the number of zones or the number of quantization level that we are going to use will be 8. Okay. The quantization error I have just mentioned, when a signal is quantized, we introduce an error. The coded signal is basically an approximation of actual amplitude value and the quantization value. So the difference between these two will give you the quantization error. So the more zones, the smaller will be the value of delta, which results in a smaller errors. So you need to have more samples, more quantization levels, that is sampling rate. Okay, the higher the sampling rate, lower will be the error. But more is the zone, then more bits are required to encode the sample, right? Remember that just now we have seen, if I want the 8 quantization level, if I want a quantization level to be 8, then I need a 3 bits. So if I increase the quantization level, that means if I increase the number of zones, then the number of bit required to encode that zone will also increase. Then the bit rate and the bandwidth requirement of pulse code modulation, that we'll see. So the bit rate of a pulse code modulation signal can be calculated from the number of bits per sample into the sampling rate. That's how we can calculate the number of bits that you can send per seconds. Okay, how do we calculate it? So to calculate the number of bits that you can send per second, it will always be calculated as the number of bit required to encode the zone and the number of levels. Okay, so n will be always calculated as the number of bits, or I will just calculate it as n, the number of bits required divided by into the quantization levels, the level of R into L. So this will be the formula in order to calculate the bit rate. Okay, so n into f. Now the bandwidth required to transmit this signal, it depends on the type of line encoding used, which refers to the previous concept that we have discussed using the formula. So a digitized signal will always need more bandwidth than the original analog signal, and that's the reason the price we pay for robustness and other feature of digital transmission is always high. So now let us start with this example. So we want to digitize a human voice. What is the bit rate, assuming the 8 bits per sample? So the human voice is normally contains the frequency from 0 to 4000 hertz. Okay, so the sampling rate and bit rate, they are calculated as, so sampling rate will be 4000 hertz into 2. So what I will get is the 8000 samples. So remember, the sampling rate is always twice of its highest frequency, according to the Nyquist theorem, just we have seen in the beginning. Okay, so we have used that formula here to calculate the sampling rate. Okay, so 4000 into 2, what we will get is 8000 sample rate per second. Then if we know the sampling rate, then we can calculate the bit rate. So bit rate is always equal to sampling rate into the number of bits that can be encoded in each zone, that is quantization level. एक quantization level में आप कितने bit को encode कर सकते हो, right? That is what we are seeing here. So एक quantization level, here it is mentioned that assuming 8 bits per sample, one sample can be encoded using 8 bits. So 8000 into 8, which gives me the 64,000 bits per second. So this is what the PCM encoding, pulse code modulation encoding. Now let us talk about the PCM decoder, pulse code modulation or demodulation, what we can call it as. Okay. So to recover an analog signal from a digitized signal, we follow some steps. Like we use a hold circuit that holds the amplitude value of pulse till the next pulse arrives. And we pass this signal through a low pass filter with a cutoff frequency that is equal to the highest frequency in the pre-sampled signal. So higher the value of L, the less distortion of the signal will be there, and the signal will be recovered using less distortion. So here in this figure, you can see that the digital data is given to this PCM decoder. This PCM decoder, it actually a hold, you can see that this first box, make and connect the samples. So it is actually a hold circuit that holds the amplitude value of pulse till the next pulse arrives, and then pass this signal through the low pass filter with the cutoff frequency. Okay, so cutoff frequency is what? Cutoff frequency is equal to the highest frequency in the pre-sampled signal. Okay. And then what we get as a part of this decoding, we get the analog signal. Because what we have transmitted in the transmission medium is the digital signal. So when we receive it at the receiver's end, then we have to decode it. So PCM decoder is used at the receiver's end and PCM encoder is used at the sender's end, which converts the analog signal into digital signal and pass that digital signal across the transmission medium. At the receiver's end, the PCM decoder is used to convert that digital signal into analog signal. And what it used? It used the circuit, which this circuit actually it holds the amplitude values of the pulse till the next pulse arrives. Because the signal that we get, it won't arrive at the one shot. Okay. So pulse by pulse, it reads the signal and then converts it and then pass it to the low pass filter. So low pass filter is actually a cutoff frequency. So cutoff frequency is always equal to a higher frequency of the pre-sampled signal at the sender's side. So that is what the components of the PCM decoder. So let's take one example. If we have a low pass analog signal of 4 kilohertz, if we send the analog signal, we need a channel with the minimum bandwidth of 4 kilohertz. So if we digitize the signal and send the 8 bits per sample, then we need the channel with the bandwidth of 8 into 4 kilohertz. That is 32 kilohertz channel bandwidth will be required. If you want to digitize a signal which is sent 8 bits per sample, okay, which contains or which is encoded or each sample is encoded using 8 bits. Then let's move to the next technique of analog to digital transmission, that is delta modulation. So this scheme, it sends only the difference between the pulses. If the pulse at time tn plus 1, t to the base n plus 1 or t subscript n plus 1, which is the higher in amplitude value than the pulse at the tn. Okay, so tn plus 1 is always higher than the pulse at time t subscript n. Okay, so that you can see here. Then if this is the case, if the difference between the pulses is like this, if the pulse at time tn plus 1 is always having a higher amplitude than the pulse at time tn, then a single bit which says 1 is used to indicate the positive value. If the pulse is lower in value, then resulting into a negative value. So to represent, we use this negative value to represent the 0 bit. Now this scheme works well for small changes in the signal values between the samples. If there is change in the amplitude are large, then this will result in a large error. So delta modulation technique or delta modulation analog to digital conversion technique, it works well for small changes in the signal's value between the sample. if the signal value during sampling, if it is changes frequently or if it change at the large amount, then this will also result in a large error. Now let's see how the encoding delta modulation components work. So this figure will show you the delta module components. The modulator is used at the sender side to create a stream of bits from the analog signal, and the process records the small positive or negative changes, which is called as delta. If the delta is positive, then the process record 1. If it is negative, then the process record 0. This is what we have seen just now. So however, we also need some more signal, okay, so that we can compare that signal, we can compare that base signal with the original analog signal. So the modulator, what it do, the modulator, it builds the second signal that resembles the staircase. Okay, the second signal which is used in this block diagram by the delta modulation modulator, that signal, it resembles the staircase. Okay, so the second signal that is built by this delta modulator, it something look like a staircase. So finding the change is then reduced to comparing the input signal with gradually with the staircase signal. Okay, so the modulator, what it do, at each sampling interval, it compares the value of the analog signal with the last value of the staircase signal. If the amplitude of the analog signal is larger, then the next bit, that is difference, if the comparison result, if it is larger than the given amplitude of the analog signal, then the next bit that this modulator predicts will be 1. Digital data will be 1. The next bit in the digital data is 1. Otherwise, it is 0. If the difference of this staircase signal value and the original the sampling interval, okay, I mean to say the original analog signal and the staircase signal, if there is a if their difference is small or if their difference is negative, then the next bit in the digital data will be 0. So the output of comparator, however, also makes the staircase itself. If the next bit is 1, the staircase maker moves the last point of the staircase signal by delta bit. If the next bit is 0, then it moves down by the delta bit. Okay, that means delta is actually that what we can say is the difference, or you can say that the next move of your digital signal, or the next cycle of your digital signal, what we can say. So note that we need a delay unit to hold the staircase function for a period between two comparisons. So this is what the modulation process. Then the delta demodulation components are shown in this figure. So the demodulator, it takes the digital data and using again the staircase maker and the delay unit, it creates the analog signal. Now this created analog signal, however, it needs to pass through a low pass filter for smoothing purpose. And after the output of this low pass filter is nothing but the analog signal. Okay, so we have converted the analog data to a digital signal using delta modulation component from this figure, where this modulator component, it consists of comparator, delay unit and staircase maker, and we send this digital data through the transmission medium. Now at the receiver's end, we receive this digital signal, and again we are using delta modulation demodulator, decoder, you can call it as, where again a staircase maker and delay unit, it decode or it converts this digital signal into an analog data or analog signal and pass this analog signal through a low pass filter. Why we are passing this signal to a low pass filter? Just to smooth it, okay, so that it will look like a analog signal. Okay, so that's it from analog to digital signal. So how do we convert the analog signal to analog data to digital signal? So in delta pulse code modulation, instead of using one bit to indicate the positive and negative differences, we can use more bits. That is the quantization of the difference. So each bit code is used to represent the value of the difference. The more bit, the more level, the higher accuracy. But if we are using higher levels, higher, you can say that zones or higher samples, then we require the higher bits, and then the complexity will get increased. So that's it. Anything else? So analog transmission that I want to start in the as a part of next topic, but time is up, so I am not going to take any more topic. So if you have any problem in understanding of this, please let me know. You can type your questions in the chat box. No. Before you leave, I don't ended this meeting. If you have any questions, I will take your questions. No questions? Okay, that's great in that case. So we can stop here. We'll meet on Monday. And I will try to finish the digital data to analog signal and analog data to analog signal. These two other type of encoding technique. Thank you. Thank you very much for patiently listening. You can end this meeting now.